All right, Pop. State your full name.
Harvey E. Campbell.
Where are you from?
Well, I'm from Friars Point, Mississippi. This is where I grew up.
And where is Friars Point, Mississippi?
Friars Point, Mississippi is about 70 miles south of Memphis. It's right on the Mississippi River. And it was an old town, had been the original county seat for Coahoma County. It was a wonderful place to grow up.
What was the population when you were growing up about?
The population was probably approximately 300 and in total. And I'll go ahead and say, due to the way things were at that time, probably about 120 Caucasians, and probably about, now I think about it, probably about the same number of African Americans there.
What was the house that you grew up in?
Well, the house was a nice house, smallish, but it was my mother and father and my older brother, Walter, and me.
Do you remember the address?
Well, we didn't have addresses that way, street addresses, although the street was called Sheriff Street, but there weren't any numbers or anything for that. Like all the mail came to post office box and that sort of thing downtown. So we didn't have that kind of an address. We had a nice garden behind the house and a nice kind of shed for things back there, and I'd been there a good while. And we had neighbors on each side and that sort of thing, and it was very close to the school. And Friars Point it was called Friars Point Consolidated School, and it was from first grade all the way through 12. It had people from out, the buses from as far as 15, 20 miles away, coming in there and so forth. It was a cool place. And as I say, it had been, it was a good little town at that time. It was a very active town.
What year were you born?
1948.
What month?
July 11.
What was your father's name?
Walter McNeil Campbell, Jr.
Junior.
Jr.
Gotcha. And where was he from?
Well, he grew up originally in West Point, Mississippi, and as most of the Campbells were at that point in time. His father, well, he had worked on the railroad for a good little while and so forth, and then he had become a Methodist preacher. And so back in that time, they were still trying to establish churches. In the Mississippi Delta, which is an area that begins right at the bottom of Memphis and goes all the way down to Vicksburg, Mississippi, which is a pretty good little ways. And it's called the Delta because there's the hills that go out and back makes it kind of in the shade of a triangle, like a symbol of delta. And it was a very flat area. It was a very, very great place for farming and a lot of cotton and other things. It was flat for as far as you could see, no matter where you were. You hardly ever saw a hill.
So what brought Walter to Friars Point from growing up in West Point?
Well, his father was from West Point,
right?
But and then once he became a preacher and started building churches throughout the Delta, and the Methodist Church, would put you there for a few years and then boom, find another place to need to establish a church. So he helped establish a lot of Methodist churches throughout the northern part of the Delta. So he lived in a lot of towns as he was growing up because of that. So that's what brought them over to the Delta. So that's how it got there.
What was your mother's name?
My mother's name was Florine Eubank, which became, of course, Florine Eubank Campbell.
And where was she from?
She was from Shannon, Mississippi, which is in the eastern side, just a little bit below Tupelo, and not too far from West Point, as a matter of fact, although that had nothing to do with how those two knew each other. She was a great athlete. She was very, very smart. She went to junior college for 2 years, and then she went to the women's college in Mississippi, which is over in Columbus, Mississippi, and that's where she graduated with honors and so forth.
Where did they meet?
Well, not till the Delta, but of all things, which is kind of surprised, I never could figure out exactly how it happened. Somehow or another, she got recruited. She wanted to be a teacher, teaching all the things like typing and business and all that sort of stuff. And somehow she got recruited to a Friars Point Consolidated School from all the way over there and came all the way over, and that's how she wound up being in Friars Point. And she was, of course, now I'll say this, my mother was very beautiful. My mother was smart, as most people I know would say, she's the smartest person we've ever known. And not only that, the best person we've ever known. That's kind of the person she was. Well, as she came to Friars Point, and somewhere around that time, so did my father, and that's how they came to know each other and wound up getting married.
I wonder if it's, and I'm going to talk, and she'll just have to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if the two of them being from away, maybe that bonded them together because they weren't from there. So maybe, It's possible. I never got, I never got a whole lot of story for how that happened, except all of a sudden they found each other, I guess. I'll put it that way. Do you know what year they got married?
Oh, Lordy, let me think. Let's see, I was born in 1948. My brother was born in 1946, so...
And they were married before the war, right?
Yes, World War II, that's right. And my father was, at that time, he was fairly old, by that meaning in upper 30s, around 40 or whatever, at that time. And he had been doing a lot of work as a mechanic and all that sort of stuff. And he got, of course, drafted, or he may have even enlisted. I'm not sure exactly which, but that was mostly what he did. Although, and during World War II, they got shipped all the way out to the West Coast,
Out to California, right?
out to California. My mother, and I have so much love and respect for my mother. My father also, but so she went where he went, and she became top person, like secretary and so forth for that person there, and they were out there for several years. She used to sometimes laugh, said he was a little older, but she said, it's possible he might have gotten sent out to, out into the Pacific. But she said, well, if you send him out there, I'm going back to Mississippi. And the person was said, no, I need you here. So he never got sent. And she said, I think I didn't exactly intend for it to be that way, but I think I kind of wound up keeping him from being into the fighting, the shooting war.
So after the war, they come back to Friars Point, and what did your father do after the war?
Well, my father wound up selling insurance for the National Life and Accident Insurance Company out of Nashville, of course, Grand Ole Opry Hay, and he was very good at it. He had a great sense of how to talk to people and make people feel good. And
seems to be a Campbell trait.
Well, I hope so. But he sold life insurance to, it didn't matter, black, white, whatever, and all that. Matter of fact, his mother wound up living in Clarksdale. And now my grandfather had already died. And so every Saturday night, we had supper at her house.
What'd you call her?
What did I call her? Hey, Grandma. And she was quite a character, and so forth.
So, talk about your grandmother, your preacher's mom.
Right.
In her house in Clarksdale. She
actually lived in the upstairs of a two-story house, and right across the street from the Methodist Church. And so there was a reason for that. She could walk across the street. Now she was very elderly all the time. I knew her, but she was one of the sweetest people in the world. She would always, as I'll say this, as people started changing the way they dressed, and skirts started getting shorter and all this. If she was out walking down the street and she saw somebody she said, honey, I think that dress is a little short. She said she would always, and they would go, oh, I'm sorry, or whatever, But she was a very, very dedicated Christian woman, and all of that. And but it was a Saturday night supper was always at her house.
And then after supper on Saturday night, talk about the procession coming back to Friars Point that y'all would take in the car with your dad.
Oh, well, it was 14 miles.
And it would take how long?
It would take us about 30 minutes or so to go. It was just small roads, and all that sort of stuff. So.
But wouldn't you stop along the way, coming home?
No. On the way going there.
Oh, okay.
No. This was time to go home because we had to go to church the next day.
Gotcha.
But we would leave about 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock on Saturday, and he was going the back roads to Clarksdale because he had all these customers of his, and he was stopping and collecting the insurance and that. And his office was in Clarksdale. It would take us about 3 hours because he would stop, and of course, and he was a real talker. So he would go in. Now, large percentage of them were African American, people and so forth. But he'd go in and he'd bring them things, that they handed out. Some of them were like flour things and seeds and things like that. And he was well loved by them all. And he took care of them really, really well, and they knew that. It was a good upbringing as far as learning how to handle people or whatever, how to be respectful about everybody.
Do you think you were bored in those car rides with him sitting in the car?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So what would you do?
Yeah, we were often bored.
What would you do and what would you say?
Well, overall, it was the standard. It's just what we did, and we knew it was going to be that way. And Mama had such a wonderful way about her that there wasn't any putting up with, well, what's wrong? And that would not be part of it.
Would you have the radio on?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. The radio was always on in the car, and half the time we were listening maybe to ball games. Other times it was music, whatever it might be. Yeah, we'd be sitting out there in the car, and he'd go in, collect money, and give them whatever he might have at that point in time to give them, and that sort of thing. And he was very revered by all those people, and it was awesome.
What's your earliest memory? What's the earliest thing that you can remember?
Earliest thing I can remember. Wow.
Yeah, top of your head.
Wait a minute. That was like last week. No, I've forgotten everything else. No. Well, Friars Point was a wonderful little town, and as I say, you could walk around, and now a whole lot of it.
In the town? What do you remember about the town?
Oh, it was a small town, but we had lots of like little grocery stores. We had a drugstore in Friars Point. They had everything. Now when I say it was a drugstore, it was a drugstore, but they owned all these other things were attached to them. They had all sorts of things they sold out of other buildings and everything, and people would come from all around. If they couldn't find something in Clarksdale or wherever, they'd say, go to Friars Point, go
To Hirschberg?
Go to Hirschberg, but they probably have it. And they had a little bit of everything. I actually spent a little time working with them in my teenage years a little bit, which was fun to do. Most of that, it was a soda fountain there. A lot of that was, making milkshakes and other sorts of things there and that sort of thing.
Like It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah, it really was. It really was. And now, my mother came to be a teacher, and she was a teacher there for several years, a number of years. And then the guy who owned the bank, he was looking for somebody to help him in the bank, and he finally talked her into coming to work at the bank, and which she did. And as I say, she knew more than anybody else about how to type and all sorts of machines and all sorts of things like that. And she wound up, of course, running that bank when he got to the point where he was about to die, and Bank of Clarksdale bought the bank there, and so she became the head of that branch. And she became the first female black vice president in that deal. And then even higher up, and she was at the top of the list and everything. As I said, I know I sound like I think she was the best person in the world, but just was. She was. And smartest, most kind person and everything. And I never heard anybody say anything bad about my mother. Matter of fact, everybody was just talking about how wonderful she is. And it was because she was.
So what do you remember about being a kid in Friars Point? What memories do you have? Do you tell the story about the tractor tire on the levee? So first of all, talk about how the levees.
Yeah, I was about to say okay, as I say, Friars Point was right on the Mississippi River. Now, it was a big levee, of course. Cars ran across the top of the levee, and then you go over, and the river was over there along with woods and things like that. So the delta was flat. So if you needed a hill for anything, people would actually come from other places around just to come to where they could go. And when we'd have a snow, people would come from Clarksdale and other places because they could go up and go with a sled and go down, the levee and do that overall and things like that. Another thing that was really cool was there was a huge sandbar just over the road there, very close. Yeah, in the river, and it was big sandbar, and the people who try to keep the river right, they wanted it to be there to keep the channel open and so forth, and so they put some pilings out there. So we'd walk across these pilings and onto the sandbar, and it was just an adventure of all sorts of things. People would come from all around to go to the sandbar. So that was kind of cool. And we spent a lot of time over there from time to time. We also had enough room there for some boats to come in from time to time. Sometimes some boats would come up that people would come from all around to go drive around. We were a place that they could come to. We didn't have a whole lot of places to unload things right there.
These were like barges, or these were private?
And what I'm talking about there is these were big ship. A lot of times paddle wheels that made for people to go up and down the river, and sometimes they would stop and take people on excursions up and down and around and then and back and forth and so forth. So that was another thing that people came there for, and that was pretty cool. Now, as time went on, things started changing from the way they had been and so forth. And one of the things that happened, there were a number of small towns in Coahoma County. Clarksdale had become the big town, but like we had Friars Point School, and Jonestown had a school, and Lula and Rich, and and there were like about 7 or 8 different places where there were schools out in the country.
Like these farming community schools.
Yeah. Sunflower, there's a place called Sunflower. Dublin had, and things like that. So then as time went on, they decided to do a consolidation. And in doing so, now keep in mind this is segregated, but still, like Friars Point, rather than being a 12th grade school that had people coming from all around, it all of a sudden became just an elementary school, and everybody, the junior high on up and so forth, we rode the bus and went to Clarksdale. One of the things that was kind of a benefit for us, for my family, is that my daddy had an office in Clarksdale. So he knew everybody in Clarksdale. And by the way, he knew everybody everywhere. He was that kind of guy. And so my 9th grade year.
That's when they started this.
Yeah. So from first up through the 8th grade, and believe it or not, we never had a home basketball game. We didn't have a gym. They actually had pulled a big building off the railroad, knocked out the inside so we could at least be inside, but it wasn't nearly a regular deal. One of the things that was kind of interesting about the Friars Point School is somehow with the people that came into that school, we pretty much dominated football and baseball. We seemed to be able to beat just about everybody else all the time. And we played a lot of teams that were from bigger schools that would come in, and somehow or another we would beat them too. But needless to say, basketball wasn't one of our strengths since all games were on the road. And as an 8th grader, I actually was on the
varsity team?
On the varsity. Well, I got to play every now and then, but I liked to play, and of course my brother was 2 years older, so he got to play a little bit more. But every now and then I got to go in a game.
Played basketball?
Huh?
Wally played basketball?
Yeah, he did. He played basketball and baseball, as did I.
All right, so you were talking about high school, or you were talking about basketball, or the consolidated school.
Right. Now, an advantage that we had a little bit, because Daddy had an office over there. He knew all sorts of people in Clarksdale. Clarksdale had one of the best young people, little league and stuff, or baseball stuff for summertime. So we got to go over there, and since our grandmother was there too, we got involved there. Walter, of course, being 2 years older than me, and I got to be really good at baseball. And Walter's team, before I was old enough to play in the others, I'd go to practice with them all the time. So, like in Clarksdale, the first level was, I'm 8, 9 years old. It's called Tom Thumb. So, Daddy said, "I'm going to sign you up playing Tom Thumb League." I said, Great. Went over there and, and met the coach I was going to have and so forth. And as it turns out, I remember in the first practice there, he said, "Who wants to be a pitcher?" And, almost everybody seems like, raised their hands. And then it came time for me. I remember when I first started, I'd been pitching in the backyard with my brother all this time. And he was like, "Now slow down, I need you to warm up." I said, "I am warming up." Well, he said, "You don't have to throw as hard." I said, "I'm not throwing hard yet." Well, we won that league. I was 12-1. We played 14 games. I went up pitching just about every single game. Every night he'd pull me out when we have a big lead, and somebody to let a few of the others pitch too. But we dominated that league, and then started Little League the next year, and all that worked out well for me.
What was sports like? What was baseball like when you were a kid? Was it you had a coach, but were like parents involved?
Oh yeah.
Like
To a certain extent, but
all the dads be out there helping, or
well, not now. Their little league was good. They had good coaches. They had guys who were real players, coaches. You knew what they're doing, and luckily I got one of those, and he and his whole family were umpires all over the place, and all this. And the only bad part of that was that I got being made as he's a pitcher, and I didn't, I was just a pitcher all the time, and I wasn't getting to play very much in other positions. Now Walter pitched some, and then he played first base and stuff like that. And looking back on it, I kept saying, I just don't. A lot of times I didn't get to play to speak of, because everybody else had their positions out there. If I wasn't pitching. I got to play a little bit here and there, but not as much as I would have liked, because I'd been branded as he's a pitcher. And I could play the other places but other people were playing.
Back up for just a second. What was you mentioned playing in the backyard with your brother. What was that like with you and Walter as kids?
Oh man, we built a mound, had the rubber on it, everything. And then we had a plate. Now, of course, him being 2 years older, we had different distances by a little, but we knew exactly what they were. We would go out there and work on pitching and so forth. And I've got to give Walter a good bit of credit of being a little older. He was trying to help me too and all that stuff.
Did y'all talk about the dynamic in the house with you and Walter? So you shared a room, right?
Oh yeah, you shared a bed.
Right, so talk about that a little bit. Tell me a little bit.
Well, it's double bed until we had a room next to our room that was the guest room. But finally, when we started getting bigger, he matriculated to that bed, and so I had that bed by myself. And then as you get further along, I got that bed and so forth. He went off to college and all that. But
I'm going to lead you into this.
yeah.
Talk about your pets growing up.
Ooh.
And I'm leading you down to a specific story, but talk about your pets.
Well, I had dogs.
Okay.
First of all, we always had a dog, or seemed to always have a dog. I'll put it that way. Tried to. Loved the dogs. And of course, it's wide open, you know, not like real city stuff and all that. And I also must admit, you know, I became where I just loved dogs, and we would wind up with dogs all over the place because I was going to pet every dog that I could see anywhere. And one day I was walking down the street. I think I've told you this before. I was walking down the street.
How old do you think you were?
I was probably about 11 or 12 or so, and walking down the street, and there were about 6, 7, 8 dogs walking around with me. And my daddy came driving up, and he rolled down the window and said, "What are you, the Pied Piper of dogs or whatever?" I said, "You know, I love dogs and I pet them all, and if they follow me, they follow me. That's all I know." And he said, "I don't think I've ever seen anything like this." I said, "Well, I just enjoy it and I have fun with it." But past that, I also ended up with a Siamese cat.
What was the cat's name? Do you remember?
Smokey.
Smokey.
And I'll tell you how that happened. The lady who was our 6th grade teacher lived just outside town, and they raised Siamese cats. And sometimes when they would go somewhere, and can y'all come up and feed the cats, make sure, and other stuff. And so I would do that, and of course I'm going to play with the cats and all that. And then after I'd done that, when they were gone for about a week one time or something. Now my mother wasn't so happy about having a cat, but the lady said, "I'm going to give you a kitten, the next litter or whatever." And she did. And a Siamese cat, when they're real young, they're kind of cream colored. The darkness hasn't come out yet, whatever. Now, a lot of Siamese cats kind of have a sharp, pointed look. They're not pretty. But the one I got wound up just being the prettiest cat in the world. And when we first got her, we were trying to figure out what to name her. And the first night, she kind of got behind a stove back there and wound up with kind of some soot all over. So she got the name Smokey. And of course, that cleared up off of her and everything. And I'll tell you something about her. Number one, she was the sweetest thing in the world, but she was fast as lightning too. The one thing that my daddy didn't like about her was when she go out there, sometimes she'd kill birds. He liked the birds around. He said, "I don't like fighting." I said, "Well, you know, it's what she does, you know. I mean, because she's fast as lightning."
That's what Mabel does.
And anyhow, she was a wonderful, wonderful cat, and I loved her so much. And as I say, she was, in my opinion, the prettiest Siamese cat I've ever seen, because she didn't have that kind of, I don't know, there's a certain kind of look that's kind of sharp. She was beautiful.
And so back then they didn't spay or neuter pets. They didn't fix pets.
Well.
So how old were you?
Well, we
Tell
did.
Me that story.
Yeah, she was a female, and she did have kittens. Yeah. Most of the time it was with another Siamese. We'd take her back up, so it'd be a Siamese cat. But every now and then she kind of got there before we realized it was going to happen. And so we had a few that didn't look the same. And it's so funny. They didn't act like the others either. You know, they act wilder too, and all of that. We, of course, gave all those away and all that. But I just thought she was the best cat ever.
So I'm trying to lead you to how old were you the night that she had the kittens when you were in bed?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
So how old were you?
Uh,
Do you think?
I guess in the teens.
Okay. You and Walter were in the same bed.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, because I had to grab Walter. He said, "Walter, don't move." He said, "What? What?" I said, "Don't move," because she'd already had one, and I could tell there was going to be more. And if he rolled back over again, it was going to be done. And I said, and I went, "Mama," and of course. We got all that straightened out and all that, but yeah, it was yeah, and he was, as I say, he was laying there on his side, and there were several brand new kittens right behind him. He didn't know it. Don't move! I was just holding. Do not move! And of course, he was trying to turn over to see what it was, and I was going, no, Mama, Mama, Daddy, come in here quick.
So, so you go to high school in Clarksdale in the 9th grade, and how big was the high school at that time?
It's a big. I mean, it was
consolidated. How many students do you think it was at that time?
I mean, we were. Gosh, I don't know how many, but we were in the top level of schools. In
Class wise, like
class
5A.
Class wise, and when you talk about sports, Big Eight, there was the Big Eight and all this sort of stuff. Here again, I'm going to go back to baseball for a second. Baseball in Clarksdale had become known to be a really good baseball town. And of course, I've been playing over there in the summers. What happened was they built a wonderful brand new school on the outskirts of Clarksdale. And the old school became the junior high. So my 9th grade year, I was at that school because that was now just a junior high, and everything else was out there. So then when I went to senior high out there, and of course I went out for basketball, and I played B-team basketball and this sort of thing. And an interesting thing happened. They only kept it that way for 3 years. And I'll say this, I think it was, for some reason, Clarksdale decided that they needed to go back to being Clarksdale. So that new school, instead of Clarksdale-Coahoma High School, became Coahoma High School. So all the rest of the county came, and both junior high and high school at the new school, with all the new stuff, which was wonderful. So anyhow, I'm going back to baseball a little bit, but my sophomore year, Walter was a senior. And, we were always playing, trying to win the state baseball. And we were always pretty good. And so it was announced that the schools were going to split the next year. And that the school there was going to be the county, and Clarksdale was going to be back there. You know how in football they have a spring practice. So they were going to break that into the Coahoma and then the Clarksdale. And so wasn't much talent in the county at that time because most of that had been more Clarksdale oriented. And I remember the guy who was going to be the coach, the football coach for the county the next year, he used to do a whole lot of baseball umpiring and all this stuff. I remember he came up to me and he said, "Harvey," he said, "I'd like you to," and I'd never played real football. Now, he'd seen me throw a football around and all this. He said, "I'd like you to maybe be my quarterback next year." And I said, "Well, that's interesting. I'm going to give that a try." And then turns out that the county's 2 weeks of spring practice coincided with the starting of baseball. And I said, "Coach," I said, "I would love to give that a try, but if I have a future in something, it's baseball. And if I don't get out here and be out here when baseball starts, I probably won't get the chance to play like me, because there was other competition. Right. I thought I'd have a chance to pitch, which thank goodness I did. I said, I'm sorry, Coach, I'd love to try it, but baseball is the future for me if I have one. And he said, I understand. I said, I'll do anything I can to help you every other way. I said, but I've got to be out there. And luckily, I was able to be a starting pitcher. We had a senior that was better, and there's another junior my age and so forth. But I got selected to pitch most all of that, and so that was the best thing that I could have done. Sure. It was the best thing, and
you didn't have to get creamed out there.
Yeah, well, that I'd have loved to have tried it, but I said I can't give up baseball to give a little shot at that. So that worked out well, and we had a great baseball team, and we won the North Mississippi, and we wound up. Gosh, I can't remember the name of the town down in. It's on the coast, South Mississippi winner.
Biloxi or? It
wasn't Biloxi, it starts with an S. But anyhow, so we went down and played them, and we wound up losing that game. And they had to come all, now, we're 70 miles south of Tennessee, and how far apart can we all be? And they wound up beating us by one there too. But it was a great experience nonetheless.
All right, so you two didn't meet in high school, right? Or you knew of each other?
We knew of each other, yeah.
How does that work? Greenwood's an hour away.
The schools played one another in sports.
And y'all had friends that intermixed.
Correct.
So, do y'all remember anything about, as far as any sort of crossover of knowing who Paula Womack was, or you knowing who Harvey Campbell was, or what was it until later that you were like, oh, in college?
Well, I watched him play basketball and baseball.
Okay, all right. And then, so you get to college in '66.
Correct.
And how did you get to Delta State, Pop?
In a car. Well, it wasn't too far away, and Walter was already there. So it just, and of course, they had good baseball there. So it was a good chance to go there. And it was also a very reasonably cheap place to go for a really good education too.
Were there any other options or ideas, or that was pretty much, it just made sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, it was just kind of the normal, kind of the thing that, as I say, Walter was already there, so it was kind of like, it's what we do, and it was a simple thing to do in a sense, and it was not real far away or anything like that.
Did Wally try to play baseball? Did he play at Delta State?
Not in college.
Not
no.
in college, no.
Okay.
But it just seemed to be a natural thing. I was 2 years behind him, and that sort of thing.
So what year in college did you two meet?
Our freshman year, when he stood me up for our first date.
Well, I don't remember.
There's
exactly
a story to that.
I want to hear that story.
I don't remember exactly the same way, but yeah.
His roommate said to him for the freshman, the beginning of the school party, a dance, said, oh, by the way, you were playing basketball in the gym, and said, oh, by the way, I think you're taking a girl from Greenwood, Paula Womack, to the dance. And he went, what? What's going on? So the two of them came to the dorm where his roommate's girlfriend was staying, lived, and I was in there. And timing was everything, because I just happened to walk out into the lobby as he was sitting there with another girl and with his roommate and his girlfriend. And of course I went,
She kind of
okay.
flipped around and went the other way.
Yeah. And didn't speak to him in Western Civ for quite a while. But I ended up going to the dance with another guy from Clarksdale. But I didn't Didn't speak to him for quite a while.
So, okay. So how did you get over that?
I don't know.
Well, we started talking in Western Civ, so yeah, later on.
Yeah.
And then we were dating by that spring, yeah.
I had no idea I was supposed to have a date with her, but yeah, it just worked out that way.
It was
So
funny.
Communication.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
So you went and you played baseball
Yeah.
your freshman year for Coach Ferris.
No,
No.
No, no, and that's
the freshman coach, yeah.
Yeah.
Coach Farrett, didn't he leave that year to go to Mississippi State?
no,
Yeah.
he was there my freshman year.
Oh, okay.
Then he left
Right.
sophomore and junior.
Right, that's right.
And went over to Mississippi State because he was so well thought of. And once he'd been over there for 2 years, he wasn't doing baseball over there. He was just,
Really?
yeah, it was just the fact that with his name and everything, they wanted to be there.
Uh-huh.
And then he decided, no, I think I really want to go back to Delta
Coach.
State. And I was very, very pleased that he did.
So you played your freshman year, and you played your senior year.
That's
There was
right.
a freshman team, and then when he left, the guys that wound up coaching there was not, he already had his guys and that sort of thing. So it's kind of one of those things where I said, well, I don't need to be out there right now. But when Coach Ferris came back to senior year, I went back and talked to him, and he said, yeah, I'd love to have you out here and so forth. Turned out to be the most wonderful thing in the world.
Right.
So what did you do for those 2 years between? What were you doing as far as you didn't have baseball?
No,
So
Intramurals, didn't you? Yeah, a lot of intramurals.
played a lot of golf.
still,
Yeah.
so still a lot of sports.
We had a golf course too.
Always a lot of sports.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And one of the things I was going to mention, I heard y'all talking yesterday about, I was talking about the schools, the high school, all the small schools had girls basketball. As a matter of fact,
In the county, yeah.
in the county, Clarksdale didn't at that time. And like Sunflower would win the state every now and then, and Sunflower, Dublin, blah, 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 all these others, and so forth. When they announced there was going to be a consolidation, they went, we're going to have girls basketball. And of course, Greenwood, Greenville, and others didn't have, that size school at that time didn't have girls basketball. But when that happened at Clarksdale,
Right.
Green, all the rest of them started women's basketball at their schools and so forth. And that was just one of those things where it was a trigger that made that happen. And of course, we were really good because we had those good players from those
Smaller
schools that had been playing
schools,
forever. But there were a lot of really good athletes out in these small schools, not just women. I'm talking about baseball, basketball, and all that, and football. It made us a pretty good powerhouse for a good while.
Do you think it came naturally to a lot of these farming communities because from a young age you kind of had to be physical to some extent? Like you're out there, I mean, the only thing you can do is play sports. The only thing you can do is throw a ball or run around or...
Well, I'll put it this way. Like some of those schools didn't have football. Like Sunflower didn't have football. They focused on basketball and baseball. Friars Point was a dominating football school. We played bigger schools, and things like that. It's amazing. I kept thinking, how are we better than all these others? We had a lot of people that lived out in the country that were pretty good athletes, and it made a difference. But needless to say, we weren't good at basketball because since we
Didn't have a
we
gym.
didn't have a gym, so we play though.
So when you played your senior year in college, Coach Ferris,
Yeah.
do you remember going to the games?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I was doing my student teaching in the spring in Greenwood when he was playing. But yeah, I went to the games. And he had some records. Now, the overall, you remember the team didn't play, they didn't have a real good record, but he had some of the records for most innings pitched and so forth. And that lasted little while.
I want to say this. Speaking of Dave Booth Ferris, he is one of the best people ever put forth on the earth. Very Christian guy and so forth. Dave Ferris, but everybody knows him as Boo. And he's in the Hall of Fame with the Boston Red Sox. I think so much of him that when it came time to retire at Delta State, they flew down. And gave him another car.
A Lincoln.
They gave him a Lincoln. And he said, "Oh, you gave me one of those when I retired." And all this. He was one of the people who helped create the Fellowship of Christian Athletes nationwide and so forth. And he was just the nicest person in the world. And I felt very, very honored. We didn't have a lot of road games in baseball because so many teams were coming to us early in the year. Big 8 teams, Big 10 teams, and all that, and we would just beat the heck out of them. But when we did have a road game, I got the chance to ride in the car with him and talk. It was just a wonderful thing, get to know him.
And even when you were running track at Ole Miss, he was sending us articles about how you did. And he could remember you and Whitney as he did all of his former players, the families. He just had that good mind to know all about the families too. So
Talk about the players from like the north that came down to play at Delta State. And talk about sort of that dynamic.
Yeah. As I got over to Delta State as a freshman, one of the things, I went out for baseball and was on the freshman team, and I looked around and it was amazing how many people on the baseball team were from the Boston and New York
and New Jersey.
Up in New Jersey. Because people up there who knew Coach Ferris and knew what kind of person he was and how much he knew and all that, they would just send them down to Delta State. And that's one of the things that made us so good. We had some really good players, and all these other teams would, as I say, Big 8 teams, Midwest, and all this early spring coming by, and they would think, "Oh, we're playing this little team called Delta State," and we just beat the ever-loving you out of all of them. And they kept saying, "Who are these people?" and so, all these people from Mississippi. I said, "Well, a lot of them aren't from Mississippi." It was a wonderful time and a wonderful thing to do.
Yeah.
And so it was just a real pleasure.
Tell me the story about the panty raid. Can you remember that story, Pop?
You and Mike Weeks. Yeah.
Laying out looking at the stars, meteor shower.
Yep.
You think this was freshman year, probably?
It was freshman
So
year.
we're talking 1966.
Correct.
Yep. Yeah.
Anyone seen Animal House?
Okay. Yeah. So you took a blanket out. Either Mike or you said, or Mike said.
Oh yeah.
to,
Everybody was going to watch the
meteor
shower and all this stuff. Was supposed to be very special, and it was. The grass was kind of wet and everything, so we took a blanket out and laid it down out there, and so we were laying there, and all of a sudden.
I think that you told me that you were like away from the light of the building, like you guys kind of went away.
Because we wanted to be able to see better. We didn't want to be under the light, and so all of a sudden, some of these guys in some of the dorms started saying, "Hey, look!" Well, I don't know if I should say that. Look at the. Yes.
Look at them.
Look at the. And then they started yelling at us and all this stuff, and it started becoming a big deal. And people started getting together to
guys.
Didn't you mouth something back, and that's kind of what started it? And then you guys ran.
I can't remember exactly what it was. And then
they congregated out there.
Yeah, and like they were gonna come get us, and so we just picked up and we took off and went back, got in our into our dorm and locked our doors.
But in the meantime, the group of guys that congregated.
Oh yeah.
What happened?
Yeah. Well, then they decided, since they were all out there, they needed to do something that was, and so they started tearing things up and they
called out
panty raid,
panty raid, and all this stuff. And And girls started throwing stuff out of the dorms and all this, and I was going, oh man, now good Lord, I don't know what's happening at Little Delta State. I'm not sure this is.
And then do you remember how it ended?
All right, the coach from Friars Point, Aubrey Rozelle.
Aubrey Rozelle, who played in the NFL and was a monster of a guy. And all of a sudden,
he was a coach at Delta State.
It was starting to get out of line. And all of a sudden, he comes out and he starts coming. And as soon as anybody saw him coming, they went, whoa. And you talking about something ending like that. He was yelling, and boom, nobody wanted to be seen by him for him to recognize them. So everybody just took off running everywhere.
And the guy came out of the shower.
Oh, yeah.
Was oblivious to the whole thing.
Yeah.
Was just taking a shower.
Because he had said he made everybody get back in the dorms.
In the rooms.
And so then he started walking up and down the aisles, and the guy
Halls,
walking out
shower.
the shower, and he screamed out, "You get!" And the guy didn't have any idea what was going on.
So he came in y'all's room, didn't he?
He jumped in our room.
No, I think that the story was that somebody jumped in your room. Just to get
That-
in the hallway. It was that guy?
It was that guy. Yeah.
You had people you didn't even know.
Right.
Yeah, he just was trying to he didn't want
Coach Rozelle.
Coach Rozelle to see him, and so he didn't want to leave. He spent the night, I think, for the most part.
All right, so I talked to a lot of people. They're fascinated about what you did in the summers in college. Talk about that whole experience.
Okay, well, a really prime thing, if you were lucky enough, was because there's a restriction on how much cotton can be grown from every different farmer and so forth. There's a limit to how much they could do and this sort of thing. This is from the United States. This is not local.
Federal government.
So that required for people to hire people to go out and see how much cotton they do, go out and see how much
Acreage.
how much acreage has been
Planted.
to go, and measure how much that was. And if it was more than the allotted amount, then they will have to plow some up. They were not allowed to go over those deals. Anyhow, so my job was to go out. They would give me some stuff. Go to this
Farmer.
and so forth, and I would have a photograph, from up above,
Aerial view.
aerial photograph of everything, and where cotton was, and then go out and measure that and so forth to get that acreage. A lot of the farmers were really nervous about it. They wanted to, farm up to very much, in which I don't
The
blame them for
maximum,
that.
yeah.
And most of them went a little over, so that if some of it didn't come up too well, then when it came time to plow that up, then they would go to those spots where it wasn't growing well and so forth. It was called the plow-ups, as a matter of fact. And so you have to sit there and watch them and make sure that they did it.
Oh.
Some of them would try to, be sneaky and say they did it or whatever, or maybe just kind of half do it, and so it might pop back up in some way. But we were always stuck. It has to be plowed up, not just whacked off, so it might grow back up.
And so this job, what I was always fascinated by, and talk about this a little bit, about your pay for that job and what that went to.
Yeah, well, it went going through college.
Paid for your college education.
It paid my college education.
Yeah.
It was really good money. Yeah. And to be privileged enough to actually be able to do that those summers.
Did you do it? How many years did you do it?
I mean, it started right after I finished,
high school.
Really?
Yeah. This is, remember, summertime in the Mississippi Delta. So it'd be maybe 100 degrees a lot of those days and so forth, but still.
Would you wear pants or shorts?
We'd wear pants pretty much there because you couldn't wear shorts out there because of stuff that would pop up on you and so forth.
Talk about your 4 flat tires in one day.
Oh yeah, and one of the things is you're on a lot of rough roads and so forth.
Dirt roads, yeah.
And for the most part, you don't want to take a very good car out there because it'll mess it up. So we wound up getting some old piece of junk car as best we could. And that way, you couldn't hurt it too much. And one day, started going, and all of a sudden, and a lot of times the tires were not like the best. They were
Retreads, yeah.
They had even worn down.
Tires,
Yeah. And one day, had a flat tire, and then, replaced that, and went a little further, had another flat tire, and then turns out, and my daddy came out. I'd called somebody, I'd found and said, I've had 4 flat tires today. He came out to find me. I said,
At
"What?"
Bond's service station, yeah.
That's right. I had to go in there so they could repair the tires so I could go back out. And he said, "Son, how in the world you do that?" I said, "Well, Daddy, I've had 4 flats today." He said, "Son, I tell you what, it's about time to buy you a brand new retreads tire to go in there." I said, "Yeah, I think so."
I love that.
Yeah.
Last story I want you to tell. Talk about when you were in the car accident. Where were you, and when was that? Was that in high school or college?
With Judy Smith, right after your senior year.
Oh, okay.
Y'all were out on the highway.
Oh, gosh, I'd forgotten all
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, let's see, gosh. I've got to think about that for a second.
Y'all were going to a party, senior party,
Yeah,
and Judy Smith was your date.
yeah.
And some guy from the other direction right outside of Clarksdale came right toward y'all.
Across the middle line.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It was one of those things. It just kept coming, and he wasn't going to move. And so what do? You get the heck out of the way.
You went down into
you
by
got-
the cemetery.
Yeah, sure. It was right by the cemetery on Highway 61.
Right.
And so
You were written up, there was an article about it in the Clarksdale paper the next day.
Yeah, and I mean, it was just one of those things where all of a sudden it was coming right at me, and it was one of those, oh my gosh, and you keep thinking it's gonna, because it was passing another car,
Yeah.
and it wasn't gonna back off and go the other way, so all I could do was I had to just get off the highway, and in a way that I couldn't get back on either, so
Right.
it wasn't the most fun thing I'd ever done.
She banged up her knee.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
Her knee, when we got in there, it wound up, her knee hit into the
Dashboard.
up there and banged the knee up a little bit. And,
Yep.
I felt bad about that, but we didn't die.
So not a great way to end it.
Yeah.
So last question. How do you look back on your time in college at Delta State?
It was great.
We were called a suitcase college, but everybody would leave on Friday morning as soon as they had classes. We would stay. We'd go to the basketball games or baseball games or whatever. We were one of the few that would stay on campus.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
it was a small enough school that,
Those
it was a
those
great
that lived
4
within
years.
an hour or so, a lot of times, it's Friday, they go home and then, come back Sunday night or Monday morning, whatever.
Right.
Did y'all got married in the summer of '70?
Correct.
And then
He had already started work at Peak Mark Mitchell in Memphis.
all right.
Right after school, got out in May, and then we got married August the 2nd, 1970.
And immediately we're living there.
Correct, because I was teaching at Lausanne
Yeah.
private school. Because I'd been a counselor at summer Camp DeSoto in Mentone, Alabama, and the lady who was selecting counselors came to Delta State, and I said, because I'd been a counselor, and she wanted me to help recruit some others to go. And I said, I'm getting married this summer and moving to Memphis. And she said, well, I teach at Lausanne. Would you like a job? So my first job was just handed to me.
Yeah, private school.
Private school. And I ended up, those 4 or 5 summers, I would run the day camp, and the school paid for me to get my master's, and I got my master's right before Whitney was born.
So
in '77.
You started in August or September.
September of 70.
And you were. When did you start working for the accounting firm in
June? Yeah.
Yeah, as soon as I graduate. Yeah.
Right.
I will say this because it's because I'm proud of it. You know, P. Mark Mitchell is is an international
Accounting firm.
accounting firm.
Yeah.
You know, I was fortunate enough. I made real good grades and so forth, and they contacted me, and you know, it was like, wow, from Delta State, yeah, you know, not from other places, and it was a great opportunity for me to open up things and so forth. Of course, my brother was already in Memphis working there, not with Pitt Mark, but
Another accounting firm.
another accounting firm. And I'm going to finish this, but my personality is not so much to go in and be an auditor, although of course I did that. I tried to do it as well as possible, and I think I did. I remember my last review from a guy who I didn't really care about a whole lot. He said, "You know, all the clients like you." I said, "Well," I said, I'm glad. I mean, I want them to like me. That's who I am." And then he got a little bit further in. He said, "You know, now here's your problem, I think, is you don't seem to be serious enough." I said, And then it's toward the end of that, I said, "Can I summarize this up?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "You know, they like me because I don't act like I know everything, and I like people, and I like that part, but it seems that means I'm not serious enough. I think I'd rather be doing something else other than this." And I got a job very quickly at
Union Planners, right.
National Bank in Memphis, and it was a great time and all that. Of course, Mama had run bank all the time and all that stuff. So
banking became the thing.
yeah. And then at some point, a headhunter
Contacted you. Yeah.
said there was an opening in Birmingham, Alabama.
Was that in '77 or '78?
77.
I think it was
October of 77.
Whitney was born in March.
Right.
In October.
Right. And we moved there. He moved the beginning of October, and we moved the end of October
Okay.
of 77.
I could never remember the timeline of when y'all moved to Birmingham.
Yeah.
And been there ever since.
Right.
And of course, at that time, it was South Bank, which then decided to become Regions Bank.
Right.
And start bringing some others. So I'm going to take a little bit more. I'd been there for a while, and then as I was getting older, I'd been there a number of years, and realized that we were going to be
Merging
with a lot of other banks coming in, and I was about to turn 60. And one of the things I noticed was how nervous a lot of the others were about them losing their jobs or whatever. And like, there was a bank right across the street from us that was going to be part of that. I could see how nervous they were. And I remember I told Paula one time, I said, "I'm almost 60 years old. I'm right at 60. If I'm eligible for retirement with this coming about, I think I'm going to retire so that, I don't want to be there and take a job and then retire right after that, and some people didn't get a job or whatever." And
2 years later.
see, I went to everybody and I said, "Okay, can I retire at this point and have everything that goes with retirement and all that?" They went, "Yeah, you can." I said, "You know what?
It's a good idea.
I think I'm going to do that."
Yeah.
I said, "I'll feel better. Number one, I'm be glad to retire, but I just feel better that somebody else can have." As I say, I'd seen some people who were really nervous about whether or not they would have a job from other banks and all that, and I said, "I don't know. I just rather let them have a job."
And the thing I remember most about your retirement was September of 2008, and you know, everything was falling apart.
Right.
As far as the economy and the banks were collapsing.
Mhm.
Right.
Enron and all the different credit default swaps, like everything was just
Yeah.
falling apart.
Right.
And you were having your retirement party, and people were coming in, and it was mainly, what was that guy's name that was in your department? Really nice guy.
Brad Kimbrough,
Kimbrough.
maybe? Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Brad
Oh, yeah.
Kimbrough.
He came in, you were talking with people and other people that were retired, and he came in and he looked like, he probably didn't look this way, but in my memory, it's like his tie was loose, and he was like, Harvey, congratulations on your retirement, I gotta go. Because you could see like something was going down. And he was like, I only have time to just say congratulations and go. And you had this look on your face of like, I'm out. Like, I don't care. I'm not stressed because it doesn't affect me one bit.
Yeah.
It was such a bizarre juxtaposition of stresses of like the minute it's not your job anymore,
Yeah.
it just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And it was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've never at all, thought it was the wrong thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. At that time for sure.
Yeah. And ever since.